important that you see me for who I am. The defense calls Nicholas Kirby.
Go ahead, sir, your witness.
Good afternoon, Mr. Kirby. How are you today?
I'm here.
Do you recall the events of November 21st of 2021?
All too well.
And what were you doing?
Walking around Waukesha, she was waiting for Miss Patterson to get done meeting with Mr. Brooks. You.
Who's that?
That would be you.
And why would you say it would be you? That's you.
Because that's your name.
And you were privy to that information at the time?
I was privy to the information about you about a week prior to this incident.
During your walking around, what were you doing with Corey?
Walking, like literally walking. We went from one store to walking around downtown after Erica told us she was going to be going to meet with Mr. Brooks. That would be you. I had advised her not to do it because it was a bad idea, and I was in fear for her safety.
And at some point, you received a phone call from Miss Patterson?
Yes.
You yourself?
Yes.
And then at that point, what did you do?
When she told me that she was in trouble and she needed help, I went to her aid, which means I took off from where I was near Dollar General and ran to where she told me to go. When I got there, well, halfway towards White Rock Elementary, I stopped a police officer at a barricade and I let him know that a woman was being assaulted in a vehicle.
And do you recall giving a description of who may have been assaulting your friend?
No.
Why not?
Because at that point in time, the description didn't matter. I had the identity of the vehicle. So I told them you need to be looking for a red SUV with a woman screaming out of it.
And how did you come into the knowledge of the description of the vehicle?
Because I saw the vehicle.
I don't think that's what
Miss Patterson told me over the phone that she was in a red SUV. There aren't many red SUVs with young women screaming for help in Waukesha.
Did you give a full report to law enforcement?
At the time when someone was in help and needed help immediately, absolutely not. I said there's a woman being attacked in a red SUV, you need to call for backup. Now.
And then you just ran?
And then I ran towards the person that needed help.
Do you recall what she was screaming?
It's a yes or no.
I do not, yes, she screamed. Do I remember what she was trying to say? No, I'm guessing it would be help. I'm in trouble. I would assume that that's what a person would scream when they're in trouble, is for help.
Anything that you're seeing right now or on this video, you did not see the day of the incident?
No, I definitely saw Miss Patterson in a red SUV that day.
Did you see?
At this specific time, no. Because I was down the road on White Rock talking to an officer who was manning the intersection of Hartwell and White Rock. And reporting at that time.
To your recollection, that's when you would say the phone call to you was made?
One of the phone calls, yes. She made multiple phone calls to me. I think probably about 6. I had been having issues with my phone that day, so it had been turned on and off multiple times. The final time that it was turned on was when I picked up her phone call, and she said, "I need help. I'm in trouble. Come help me." I'm being assaulted.
Would it be fair to say that you're not sure how many phone calls you had received that day or who they were from?
I only received 51 phone calls on my phone that day. That I actually do know. 6 of which belonged to her.
And all around the same time?
All around the time. She obviously didn't want to get off the phone because no one calls me 6 times in a row unless they need some help.
Can we continue to play from 138?
Go ahead.
Had you yet come into a range where you can see Miss Patterson at that point?
Corey was the one that spotted her first.
Could you yourself see her at that point?
I heard her scream. That's what caught my attention.
And you made reference to that scream being heard from inside the vehicle. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, because that's where she was when she called me. And I was still on the phone with her while going down White Rock Avenue. Even while I was talking to the officer, I said, I'm on the phone with her right now. I'm trying to figure out where she is. Can you please call for backup? So we continued down White Rock to look for Miss Patterson.
Would it be fair to say that from where we're paused at in the video, we can't tell if there's any vehicle parked in that general area?
You literally just played the video where the vehicle
Just
turned
answer the
around.
question, sir.
Do you know, as you were walking with your friend Corey, do you know if she observed Miss Patterson being in a vehicle at that point?
She was with me when the phone call came. So I assume that when someone tells me that they're in a vehicle, then they are in a vehicle. That does not mean that they would be in a vehicle by the time I got there. I was on foot. And I wasn't walking, I was running.
You weren't able to observe Miss Patterson on White Rock Avenue at that point?
Judge, you asked to answer.
Huh?
Overruled, the witness may answer.
I was not looking ahead of me. As you can tell by the video, I was looking at my phone trying to call Miss Patterson back because she was not answering her phone. That scared me. So I told Corey to keep an eye out look for her as I tried to keep calling her. When I looked up and we got past the White Rock Elementary School sign, that was when I seen her. I observed her walking when Corey had told me that she had seen her. And so we grabbed her and started to leave to turn around. At that point in time, an officer was coming to Frame Park because of the report that I had given.
So you observed Miss Patterson walking and not inside of a vehicle?
At that point in time, no.
No, as in?
As in she was not in a vehicle at that point in time when we finally came upon her.
So when, if at any time did you observe Miss Patterson inside of a vehicle?
When she was going back into his vehicle to get her things or whatever it was that she was trying to pull out of his car, her phone or something or whatever. The red SUV was parked in front of the apartment buildings. There was a tree here, and Miss Erica came from the passenger side of the vehicle around the back. That's when I heard her yell something. That's when I went over.
You made reference to Miss Patterson coming from around the vehicle?
Coming from the passenger side, so I had assumed that she had just gotten out of the vehicle.
Do you know that for sure?
If I didn't see her earlier when I was on White Rock or a vehicle earlier on White Rock, how could I know?
Did you see her in the vehicle at that time?
I seen her come from around the vehicle. I am not actually sure if she was in the vehicle at that point in time.
Thank you.
I was just going by what she said over the phone.
Okay.
So my
understood.
assumption is that she was in a vehicle.
Where was Miss Patterson at this time, if you recall?
At that point in time, she had met up with Corey. Corey had walked ahead of me, and her and I were looking for her. I didn't see her right away. Corey did, and she just told me she's in a red car. So that's what we were looking for.
At that time, was Miss Patterson inside of the vehicle?
I do not recall. But what I do recall is the owner of the vehicle getting out of the vehicle, and that became my primary concern.
We observed the two, you and Miss Corey, running towards the area of the vehicle. Why such the urgency?
Miss Patterson is a mutual friend of ours. She said she was in trouble. I don't play around when people are in trouble.
And what happened at this point, if you recall?
At this point, there was a physical altercation between Mr. Brooks and Miss Corey and Miss Erica. I was more worried about Miss Patterson being hurt, so I went for her to get her out of the way. I stepped between them as best I could, and I told Mr. Brooks he needs to leave. He needs to get out of here. Does not belong out here.
During this altercation, did you observe Miss Patterson get back into the vehicle at that point?
I observed her reaching into the vehicle for something. I don't know if she was grabbing a purse or something or whatnot, but she was grabbing something of her personal property out of the vehicle.
Did you observe
while
her?
This was going on?
What happened to your jacket at that point?
That jacket hit the ground as soon as Mr. Brooks started going for the two women.
So you threw the jacket off?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And what was your reason for throwing the jacket off?
Well, if the court don't hate me for it, I'm just going to say it's a good thing that there were two women in my way at that point in time.
And what do you mean by that?
That means when my jacket comes off, trouble's going to happen. Especially if you're trying to assault a woman in front of me.
So that gesture was an aggressive gesture?
Oh, that was a completely focused gesture.
Well, you did make reference to who gave the report that there was a knife involved.
That was not put into a report. That was a miscommunication between me and an officer. I had been knifed earlier that week and had 12 stitches in one hand. I said, now I have a friend being assaulted and I need backup here. So when the police stopped and asked if there was a knife, I said, no, there was never any knife. I didn't have a knife. Miss Patterson, Miss Corey didn't have a knife. You didn't have a knife.
When she called you, did she give you a name of whoever may have been assaulting her?
She didn't have to. She was meeting one person that day, and I knew exactly who he was because she had showed me his picture and rap sheet prior. Her child's father, the father of their 15-year-old daughter, is who she was meeting up with that day. And I told her multiple times, it's not a good idea. I have a bad feeling about this.
Would it be fair to say from the two exhibit videos that we watched today that you in fact did not walk past any SUV?
I most definitely walked past an SUV that was red on White Rock Avenue. Whether or not it was your specific SUV, it was still a red SUV. Up until this point, knowing Miss Patterson, I didn't know anything about the father of her child. I didn't know anything about his background except for what she showed me over the phone. Anything about his vehicle description, why would she need to tell me that?
Is it fair to say that the video doesn't show you walking past any red SUV?
If the video,
is that fair to say?
If the video proves that, then yes.
Do you yourself recall stating that the alleged defendant tried to punch and push you?
The alleged defendant being you? Yes. Attempted to.
Would it be fair to say from the video that it doesn't show you being pushed or?
No, it does not. It shows me pulling two women away from the situation.
Any reason why you would state to detectives that the alleged defendant attempted to punch and push you?
Probably because there were 3 different people's fists flying, and I was just trying to get the people that I cared about out of the way of danger. So if my statement to the detective is off a little bit after watching a bunch of people get run over, I can understand why.
So you were at the parade that day?
I was not at the parade that day. I was in the area
So
trying
how
to get back to my house.
so how can you watch people being run over if you weren't at the parade that day?
I wasn't attending the parade. I was in the area that the parade route was in. My street is the parade route.
Did you see anyone injured that day?
When
During the parade?
Yes, after I walked back through that area,
You saw someone get injured?
I saw a red SUV take off like a bat out of hell down Main Street and
you
go
see-
through a crowd of people.
The question was, did you see this take place?
With my own freaking eyes. Yes. How many times do I have to say yes for you to understand it? YES spells yes.
Is it fair to say from that vehicle, got me,
Video.
I'm sorry, from that video, is it fair to say from that video that in fact there are not 3 people throwing punches? Would that be fair to say?
There are 3 people throwing hands in that video. Erica, Corey, and Mr. Brooks. Not myself. If you watch the video, you will see 3 pairs of hands go up towards one another. Whether one is stepping in to pull someone away from another or not, hands are being brought up.
Do you recall where you went after that altercation?
You mean where me and the 2 girls went? Where me and Miss Patterson and Miss
where-
Corey went?
Where you and
We
your 2
started.
friends went? Yes.
We started walking back. We turned to walk back the direction we had came, so taking White Rock to Main Street, and then cutting through the neighborhood there to get over to where the women's shelter was. That was where we were going at that point in time. However, things took a drastic turn when the red SUV that I have described multiple times went down the opposite direction of White Rock Avenue, across the railroad tracks and the intersection of Perkins and White Rock, and then turned back around and came back down. That is what you saw in the video here when the red vehicle pulled up on the school side of White Rock. After the altercation between Miss Patterson, Mr. Brooks, Miss Corey, and myself, the 3 of us, Miss Patterson, Miss Corey, we started to leave. I told Mr. Brooks, you need to get out of here. The police have been called. You need to leave. You need to leave now. You do not belong here. I did not expect.
Can you strike everything that's not pertaining to the question that was asked?
Actually, I'm just describing the entire event in its entirety. We were stopped partway down White Rock, and that was when I had told the officer, because he wouldn't get out of his SUV, I had let him know that they need to be on the lookout for a red SUV that took off back down White Rock towards Perkins Avenue, or street or road, whatever it is. The officer had asked me if there was someone with a knife, and that was when I held up my left hand, and I said no. I said I have 12 stitches from a knife injury on this hand, but this is what you need to be looking for, is this red SUV. And I'm guessing that's where the miscommunication of the knife came in, and I don't know where that officer went after that.
Did you yourself sustain any injuries during the altercation?
I ripped open 3 stitches on my hand, but that was more so from pulling Miss Corey away from Mr. Brooks so we could get out of there.
Did you report that?
No. Because at the time I didn't notice it. I didn't notice my hand was ripped open again until I got home.
So it would be fair to say that you don't know how those stitches opened up. that be fair to say?
No, I'm pretty sure I know how they opened. My stitches got caught on the zipper on Corey's backpack. That's how the stitches were ripped out of my hand when I was trying to pull her away from Mr. Brooks and intervene between her, Mr. Brooks, and Miss Patterson.
Did you notice any blood from the stitches being reopened?
Didn't feel anything until I actually looked at it when I got home. 12 stitches coming across my thumb in kind of like a fish hook type pattern. It was the 2 over here that ripped open, and the 1 up here. Or actually, I take that back, the 1 up here.
And do you recall what time you made it home that evening?
Absolutely not.
Was it immediately after the altercation or sometime after? Or
No, I took the girls back to the shelter, and then I started running back towards Main Street to try and see if I could avoid the parade traffic. And that's when I saw the red SUV go down Main Street.
No further questions?
Before I decide whether to do cross at this time, how long do you believe it will be?
0 minutes because I have no cross.
All right, thank you.
Well, first of all, what was it like just being called to testify for Brooks's defense?
Honestly, trying to hold back a lot of rage. Took a lot not to want to jump over the table.
Is there any doubt in your mind that he's guilty?
He's absolutely 100% guilty, but this delay process that he's trying to do and pick apart scenes bit by bit and fraction by fraction is not going to help him whatsoever.
What do you think? I mean, just based on the questions that he asked you today, what do you think his defense is? It's very unclear at this point.
His defense isn't unclear to me. His defense is delay and confused. That's all he's doing. He's trying to use what was first said to me right after a traumatic event happened to where, at that point, which all my thoughts were jumbled when I was giving my statements to the detectives. You know, I still had a lot of stuff going through my head at that point in time when I was talking to those detectives, and I think he tried to take advantage of that and realized that he couldn't.
When you encountered him by the SUV with Erica and Corey, what was going through your mind then? Was it a scary situation just for you being in his presence?
No, it wasn't scary for me being in his presence. I've faced guys like him before in my life. I was more worried about Erica. I was more worried about Corey. I never for a second thought that this man would drive down a parade route. All I told him was, you need to leave. The police have been called. You need to get out of here. And like I told Court TV, and like I will tell everyone till the day I die, to everyone who is suffering from this, I feel like this is my fault because I told him he needed to leave. I feel like he may have panicked in that moment when it was a very scary moment for him, and when he heard the sirens, he knew law enforcement was coming and he took a wrong direction. But if he ultimately did make that decision to take human life, then that's on him. The regret that I have is that I didn't do something more. I would have put my life in danger and had my life taken in order to save every single one of those people. And that's something I can't do anymore because now he's locked up.
Well, and you said you live downtown, right? So, I mean, this was impactful to you just as a resident of Waukesha.
Yes, it was.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.